Can't
Hi.
hear you. There you go. Now I can hear you. You weren't talking. That's why I can't hear you.
I like the new setup, or maybe you've had it always. I've just never noticed
Which part of it?
the microphone.
Oh no, this is new. So I had a what do they call it? A snowball, and it was working great. But I started getting real finicky connection issues, and I just used that as an excuse to go ahead and upgrade to a full-on condenser mic. So this is a really fancy Rode condenser microphone. It actually sounds like I'm talking to you instead of into a tin can.
It looks awesome, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I like it a lot. Yes, I like the sound. I do a lot of like quick demos for work and showing like my team, getting them oriented to Salesforce and stuff. So this just makes it's nice that my audio quality is no longer an obstacle for any of the work that I get to do. Dylan, welcome. Good to see you. Welcome back. Tom,
How you doing?
Dylan, Tom, have y'all met each other?
I don't think so.
Nice to
All
meet
right.
you, Dylan.
You got quite the like nice background, the wall, or I don't know what it is, but I like the vibe you got going on there.
Thank you. The advantage and disadvantage of living in a small home is the desk can only face this way. But
you had me fooled by small, so
Hello, Miss Barr. How are you? Welcome. Welcome.
I learned something about these invites, and you've probably already heard. They don't list you as busy. So I haven't been able to show up because people keep scheduling customer calls or my leadership schedules something.
That's all right. Well, I'll take your excuses, but we just understand your priorities are for
the
your
same actually
job and full-time
happened to
work.
me. So this is true.
I guess
not today, but
my priorities are all wrong. Show up to where my paycheck is. I need to reevaluate this.
Cannot believe you. Yeah, I thought you were more like value-driven, mission-driven human than that. So yeah, showing up for the money. Can't believe it. No, I definitely understand it. This is our new time as well. So I think there's been some confusion. Any insight you guys have into the invites and the topics? What I'd really like to do from this week forward, I'm going to try to work on it, is basically like take a few weeks and let's just talk about specific partner tech, right? Let's talk about PRM. Let's talk about marketplace apps and listings. Let's talk about account mapping services. Let's talk about content management, marketing tools. Like get into each one of these segments. Let's go like maybe the Canalys map and pick some vendors. And then let's just talk about how these impact partnerships and integrations. Does that sound interesting, compelling, useful? You three get to decide. You're the only ones that came. So I'm seeing nods. I'll take nods. Okay. So with that, Dylan, I don't think so you don't know Tom. I don't think you've met Elizabeth as well.
Correct.
So please feel free to do a quick introduction of yourself, and then I'll let them tell you who they are and where they're at as well. Make sure everybody's connected well.
Sure. So I'm Dylan. I live in New York. I'm part of Candybox. We are a RevOps, Salesforce, HubSpot consulting firm. So our relationship, I guess, to partnerships is we deal with any of the go-to-market tech stack, centering around like your core CRM. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Like literally my whole career has been in like the Salesforce, sales ops, RevOps space. And going back to early days, I was not teammates, but worked at the same company as Chris Samilla, as well Ty at Optimizely. Spent 4 years building out the Uber Eats sales operations team. And here we are. I think that covers it pretty well.
Real quick though, I want to jump in and ask one and make you talk about this for a second. Candybox, you said, does RevOps specific consulting, right? But you're moving into considerations of great. How do you be more considerate of channel partnerships, ecosystem ops? Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked about this a little bit. I think the first time I joined, I think anytime you have a function that has the term ops, you're going to get 100 different definitions for what that means across 80 different companies. I think like the evolution has been. I actually talked to somebody recently. So I went to New York, Salesforce's New York World Tour a couple of weeks ago, and I met someone there that was on a RevOps team, and she manages someone that is in sales ops, customer success ops, and partner ops. So she has like individuals within her org focused on the different functions, but they're all rolled under one org. So what I would say is, the traditional investment like on the CRM and the tech stack, right? Sales always gets the highest priority, customer and marketing kind of, right in there too. And then, customer success historically has been somewhat neglected, and then partnerships has been even more neglected than that, right? Sometimes it's due to size and number of people on the teams. But I think that the shift has been like, people are starting to stop thinking about like these functions in silo, but like, how do we think about our whole revenue go-to-market function? And because all of these things kind of intersect, like we can't think about them in the isolated manner. So yeah. And like we even have a customer right now where they have a team, like a RevOps team for their Salesforce build, but we got engaged directly by their partnerships team because they can't get any support from their RevOps team because they're split on the other. So we're building alongside the RevOps team just for the partnerships team. So it's kind of an interesting, like how that ends up happening.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I appreciate the context there. Okay, Tom, 2 minutes on you. Elizabeth, 2 minutes on you. Introductions, get Dylan oriented.
Oh, you go first, Tom. Sorry.
Oh, no, you go first.
At the same time.
Or you can do it.
Just like.
Sure. So nice to meet you, Dylan. I won't do 2 minutes. No, not even my mother would listen to me talk for 2 minutes. But I run a partnership software company. We're relatively new, focused entirely on how do we get sales engaged and selling through partners. And I'm interested in, I love these sessions because we always talk about what are the challenges in doing that. And then to your point, Aaron, around, different partner tech, being fully candid, one of the things that doesn't make sense to me is why doesn't partner tech play nicely together? We should be sold in together. You don't buy only one marketing tool or one sales tool. You should probably buy a stack of partner tools to solve the different challenges of scaling a partner program. So interested in what you're going to talk about, Aaron.
You're leading me. I appreciate that. Right in. All right, Elizabeth, your turn.
Okay. Nice to meet you, Dylan. I am in Dallas. I am Director of Alliances and Partnerships for Human Security. What else am I supposed to say?
That's about it. If you want, it's up to you.
We have actually a webinar on the 19th you should come to if you're interested to get more perspectives of how to influence the C-level suite for your partner programs.
Is that the 19th as of Friday?
Yeah, the 19th.
Okay.
Drop a link in the chat, please.
Okay, so check into that.
Really great.
I think it's great that a RevOps or any type of ops person joins in a partnership conversation. One, we get to understand your workflows and the whys, but it helps us too as well to explain what we need, and then hopefully you guys can include those needs on the partnership sides, because like Tom said, there is a disconnect and we're being siloed. So any way we could figure out what tools to use to be embedded into the Salesforce process would be great.
Okay.
Well, nice to meet you both.
Yeah, I'm excited about that link, actually. So that's been an ongoing conversation point. I think we had that we talked about that with the group that was here. Like, we had a newer partnership person, like 7 months in, trying to understand, coming from within the company, right? Got moved into partnerships because somebody had to do it, kind of thing. And she's asking those questions about justification and value add. I've put a poll out there because it seems that consistently leaders just don't understand the revenue impact that collaborating and collaborative sales has. And I've actually started calling it, I'm moving toward, thank you, links in the chat, guys. I'm moving toward like focusing on collaborative selling instead of saying partner selling or, direct should be working with partnerships. Well, partnerships should be working with direct too. I actually think it's a two-way street. And when we have that conversation more holistically, instead of just beating the partnership, we need collaboration. It works the same way. If we get more value by adding a partner to our deal, doesn't the partner get more value by adding us to their deal too? So the focus really is this collaborative selling approach, and how do we facilitate that? How do we make that grow across the board? So I say all that to say this will be a very useful webinar. And this is a PL webinar. Is this a public one or is this just for the members? Do you know, Elizabeth?
I got told to take my original post off of LinkedIn because it's only for members.
Oh, okay. Good
I
to
don't.
know. Yeah.
So
Is
I feel like they usually say members only in the sign up,
it
and it doesn't
does.
say that for this one.
It did, but I don't know if you guys know Wancho or Honcho,
Yeah.
but
Poncho.
he asked me to take it off. So
Okay.
any way I can scale and get more attendees would be great, but it does say members only right at the bottom.
Is it at the bottom?
Mhm.
Okay. I'll look at it and see. I'll get registered. I'd love to. I saw this one come through and lost the link. I have a hard time keeping up with some of the events too. And that'll be the ongoing struggle here is I'm going to try to get them to add topics to each week so that we can try to drive more. My wife's over here peeping, so I'm waving at her. I'm going to try to get topical to drive more people toward, come this week or come that week or come the next week instead of be here. Hey, I'm in a call right now. Yeah, I'll take it. Thanks. Here you go for posterity lunch.
It's nice.
Yeah, I know she does this. I don't know how she does it. She always does this when I'm in meetings, and I think she does it because it makes her look so good. Like literally, food's just delivered to me. This is not every day. It is not all the time. My wife is amazing. I'll clarify that. Basically, I'm gonna try to get more subjects on the invites on a regular basis so people know when to come and you can kind of pick and choose. Okay, would that be a good session for me? Yes, no, maybe so. Tom, that's from some of your feedback. I think it's useful as well. Okay, my topic today is more on this partner tech stack, is more on how we organize it, how we organize data flow. I've got a couple of models. It's from my article this morning that I posted where I'm kind of taking this challenging position, potentially of saying like, I think partnerships should drop the CRM, maybe entirely, and partnerships needs better tooling. Anyone have any other challenges you want to bring or discuss before we get to that, or if we get to that?
It's funny. I got the notification on LinkedIn about your post, and it was like the first thing I saw this morning, and I thought it was directed at me, and it was like a message telling me to drop the CRM and our company name.
Yeah,
So
it
that was the
was
first thing.
it was
And
personal.
then I
I
was like,
actually
read it. I
started
was
the
like,
week by writing.
okay.
Yeah, I started the article as Dear Dylan, and I copied and pasted everything below that.
Well, it was like when your brain hasn't turned on yet. So I
Yeah.
was thinking it was like a LinkedIn message, and I was like, wow, that's really candid feedback and very personal. But and then I read it. I was like, oh, this is very interesting. Not what I thought it
Nice.
was.
Okay, good. Well, I'm glad I got your attention. That's great. Anyone else? Elizabeth, any topics this week? Tom, any questions, topics from you?
I think it's interesting that you brought that up. So right now we're in the process of raising money.
Mhm.
And the conversation that we have with investors, or that they ask us, is, well, play this out in 3 to 5 years, what are you? And if the world is really moving towards partners first, what I'm calling connect sales, because it rhymes with direct, and sales can understand what connect means. But moving towards this ecosystem world, and we're moving towards this world where AI can generate a lot of the information for us, so we don't need to have this historical big database. Well, then probably the future CRM is going to be partner first, not direct first. Anyway, it's just an interesting thing to hear and Salesforce is aware of this and they're trying to figure it out. But obviously,
Yeah.
how do you turn a multi-billion-dollar company?
I think it's a really good question, because if you look at Salesforce's core architecture, they have the same problem that basically every other platform in the world has. When you start with the functional foundational rhythm, you're locked into that rhythm, right? Salesforce started in 1999 with 5 objects that were locked. There was no customization. There was no adjusting. There was no fields. You just bought the CRM and you used it out of the box. They haven't moved too far away from that model in 20 years. They're a platform now, right? Custom objects, custom fields, customizations, workflow, reporting. They have all these other features, but they still have some inherent weaknesses based on that core model. Like you can't do trending reports out of the box. My understanding is Salesforce still requires a lot of customization to create custom objects and drop data points and copy. You got to capture that information on demand to create trending reports in Salesforce. That's kind of an advanced rhythm that a lot of startups aren't going to have, right? And it's not necessarily easy to go stand that up without the experience. HubSpot's going to face the same problems, their core architecture around, hey, we don't have leads. We're all about ABM. We have deals and contacts and accounts. It's kind of ahead of its time when it came out. It still confuses people in terms of how they build. I think it's the core differential architecture piece between the two platforms. but Salesforce is still beholden to its lead to opportunity rhythm. If you're managing ABMs, I'm at maybe the second company I've worked at so far or third, that's just like, hey, you know what? We're not going to use leads anymore. We're going to focus on accounts and contacts. We want to hold this, and leads is now just a funnel to bring data from marketing into contacts. And we're doing all this automation work on the back end that we have to custom build because Salesforce hasn't caught up yet. So when I hear like this in New York, I think there was some announcements about the partner relationship management and partner management in Salesforce. They're going to be focusing on that, maybe adding some enhancements. I still have to go watch that, but I don't have super high hopes for what value it's going to bring for out of the box functionality because of that very exact reason. So it's a good observation. Like, how is Salesforce going to pivot? How are they going to make this shift? And are they going to do it in a way that we can actually follow? Or are we so entrenched in our technology? That's a big point. If we're so entrenched in our technology, can we really move well? That's been an ongoing problem I have with all these tools.
Well, I have a question actually for Dylan and Elizabeth, and Aaron, you may fall into it too, which is my tech doesn't do anything with ISVs. And so I'm trying to find a partner that works really well, another product that works really well with ISVs. And it's a mess. It's from what I can tell. And so I'm just curious from a RevOps standpoint, what do you do to engage with your ISVs? Because I've seen a lot of custom objects built in Salesforce to manage that, but I haven't seen anyone do it well. So I'm curious what you guys do.
Are you referring to the actual process in terms of like how you're tracking and attributing, that engagement, or like the actual, like, how are you engaging them, directly? I guess I think those are kind of two different things. So I'm kind of curious.
I was leaving it open, but yes, specifically the two questions are, what are you doing within Salesforce to actually manage who's involved, the forms that need to be filled out, what stage it's at, and then on the second piece, what you mentioned of, okay, now that we've done all the admin, how do we actually close the deal?
I don't have a great answer for this one. I mean, this is not something that we, as consultants, like that we do specifically. ISVs there was actually a really interesting session I attended at Trailblazer DX, which is like the developer conference in Salesforce's developer conference in San Francisco. I think it was like in March. They had a whole session about how to engage. Basically what you're asking, I candidly didn't get great answers. It's not something that we specifically do. I mean, ISVs are kind of this whole other black box and have kind of their own unique kind of like niche within the Salesforce ecosystem. And then like we follow in like a different one, right? Because we're professional services. And so we do a lot more like custom things with our customers. So it's, you'd think we'd be more integrated with them, but I'm also trying to figure this out as like, running an agency.
So for Salesforce wise, for the attribution side, you guys have been along the journey with me. We've been trying to figure out how to properly do attribution. So when we work with our RevOps who work in Salesforce, they first put up primary partner. So that could include any of the ISVs. There'd be a drop-down box you could pick. And then it could secondary partner. Again, you could drop down. It could be cloud partners, ISV partners, MSSPs, whichever ones are integrated into that. But then they just switched it up on us again this morning, and they're doing MEDDIC. If you've done the MEDDIC sales process before, they're doing MEDDIC fields. So then we are all on there, the partner people going, wait, where are we now? How are you going to include us in there? So you've got to somehow include the partnerships within the MEDDIC, methodology. Because they're not letting the people go through again until they fill out those fields. So we now have to have a separate meeting with RevOps that has revamped our Salesforce to again figure out how to properly put us in there.
Can I ask a couple of clarifying questions about that? You were using dropdown, so you were using relational fields right on the opportunity to highlight partner engagement. So primary partners, partner 1, secondary partners, partner 2, right?
Lookups to accounts, I'm assuming.
Yeah, ready to look up to partner accounts, I would assume, right?
Say it again.
Was it a lookup field or was it like a pick list field? I'm just kind of wondering technically.
Oh, okay. So if you're attributing to an opportunity for the Salesforce primary partner that they're dealing with, working with, there was a drop down box. So if you're trying to do like partner accounts within Salesforce, each one just has their own account. So maybe I misunderstood.
Well, yeah. So when you click the box, this is getting like really hairily technical, right? But when you click the box, do you have the ability to type in a search and actually link directly to an existing partner account? Okay.
Okay, yeah.
So it's a lookup. That's what's like a lookup field versus the scary part, which a lot of companies will also do as they get started, which is we have a single pick list that we've added all of our active partner to, and we're going to build off of that, which is horrible.
That's not even the scariest one.
Multi-select, is that what you're talking about? Or
well, I was gonna say an open text field, just type in the partner's name. I've seen that.
Yeah, you're right. That is the scariest. I could write a whole article about scariest methodologies for attaching partners, right? And just go through that. That would be awful. Okay, but now it's gone because they introduced the MEDDIC framework and they didn't include partner selection in that framework.
Yeah, so we'll have to figure out in which part of the framework to include it. I think there's a part in there like economic buyer and who they buy from and who, like, what technology company do they like to purchase from. That would be a good spot to be able to have that search or drop down for putting in the provider or putting in the CDN provider or putting in the ISV provider.
Yeah, that becomes interesting because, well, we could spend technical on like the limitations of adding lots of lookup relationships and limitations around objects and things like that and how you build those relationships. There's our different opinions around how to build those bridges. But that's so basically the technical answer there, Tom, is like there's just a direct relationship with the opportunity. I'm going to back up and ask you a couple questions though. Like I want to go a little bit higher level too and see if we're on the same page. Tell me what you mean when you say ISV. What does that look like for you in your world?
Are you talking about everybody or just me, Aaron?
You.
So
you're asking how do we work with ISVs? I want to start by understanding what you mean by ISV, just in case there's differences in opinion.
I'll give you my definition, which I don't think is the common definition, which is our product so the product I built works really well if you are working with equal power balances or where the power balance isn't completely out of whack with one partner in front of the other. If you get into any form of strategic alliance or technology partner, or someone who basically insists on writing on their paper and has their form that you have to follow, I'm calling it an ISV. So any type of custom process specific to a single partner because they have the power in the relationship is what I'm thinking of as an ISV.
Okay. So
I know that's not the market definition, but
no, that's okay. That's part of why I'm asking, because when I talk about ISV, like that, one, acronyms, right? They can mean anything for everybody.
Very
I work at a
important to
company,
define.
super important, right? I work at a company where we talk about SSO a lot. And internally, when we talk about SSO, we mean shared services organization, but literally everyone else in the entire technical world understands SSO to be single sign-on, right? So we have a whole like Confluence page just dedicated to Atlassian acronyms. So that's why I'm asking. So Elizabeth, you're saying ISV is independent software vendor that delivers all types of software or SaaS offerings to address customer, business, or technical requirements. Okay. That
was basically, what I was kind of and my brain also clicked specifically into like the Salesforce ecosystem because that's what my day revolves around. And like they always they don't even put their own qualifier in it. They just say our ISVs, which I guess at this point, most ISVs integrate with multiple platforms, obviously.
Right.
So.
And so when are you ISV versus when are you like Salesforce for a lot of people should be a strategic partner at the end of the day, because to your point, Tom, and that's where I would maybe differ in terms of what you're saying is, and I want to clarify your definition for you, your company, any vendor that you're working with that has more leverage in the relationship to force you into their process is kind of hitting this ISV marker for you. Is that right?
Yeah. And the reason so we don't have good definitions, clearly. And Elizabeth, I appreciate that you posted the definition so I don't sound like a total numpty on every call. But we talk with, I've talked now with over 1,000 partner people. And when you talk with somebody who works with an ISV, normally they're dedicated to that or a few other providers.
Mhm.
And like what you just said, Elizabeth, around getting into the MEDDIC framework, the reason that's so important is because if you don't follow their process, you don't get leads.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm thinking of.
Gotcha. Okay. That actually helps me a lot in terms of understanding when you talk about how do you manage these technically and visibly. At the end of the day, I try not to get too wrapped up in a lot of these acronyms, simply because when you go from one program to another, like what's an affiliate, what's a reseller, what's channel? Well, channel could be all of it. Realistically, all partnerships is a channel for business, but channel also tends to mean resellers consistently from one org to another. If you start talking about channel, you're talking about resellers. You're not talking about ISVs. You're not talking about strap partners. You're not talking about development partners or whatever you want to call your integration. Right. Another one is integration partners. Those look different than ISVs. I mentally always struggle to keep them kind of separate. I can kind of know them when I see them, but defining them is always a challenge. So that's why I asked Tom, wasn't to draw out like differences, just to understand your point of view and where it's coming from. Right. So one of the things I would say, I assume, Elizabeth, like talk about your example, your partner accounts are clearly defined in Salesforce, right? So when you go into the filter to do your lookup, it's only going to pull partner accounts based on partner account model and setup.
I don't know the behind under the hood, but it does, yeah, it does pull that in. So if you are able to do like an audit report on each partner, as long as they've pulled that into the opportunity, you can see where each partner is having influence and what the activities are around that partner.
Gotcha. Okay. And that makes sense to me. Tom, does that make sense to you?
It does.
Aaron,
Okay.
I think what you're
So-
asking is like how to ensure
Yeah.
you're not tagging non-partner accounts,
Yeah.
right?
When you
Yeah.
look in the filter, can you accidentally search on a customer account in that filter kind of thing?
And I think what happens too, right, is like there's the common issue where like partners could be customers too. So orgs have to make a decision like, do we create a customer account and then a partner account that are technically duplicates?
Dual account versus single account management.
At Checkpoint Software, they had partners listed as partners, and when partners were also customers, they listed them separately with customer accounts, and they each had their own account plan, and they each had their own like metrics and whatever you see within Salesforce. You
Yeah,
apply them
I think
there.
that's the most common, I think,
But-
that we
Yeah.
see.
But
And
when you do the drop down though, or the search engine, you should program it to only allow you to grab those partners, right?
Exactly.
Like, same thing with the customer. When you do that, type in or drop down, you should program it to only allow to pull through the customers. So either way, if you pull through the customer and you're doing your opportunity, you can pull your ISV as a partner and put that as the person you're selling to as a customer. And then in the partner section, you can label them as a partner or label somebody else as a partner.
Yeah. Yeah. We get deep on
quick,
this one issue. Go ahead.
well, I was just saying, quick plug here. I mean, we could talk about this more, but I'm gonna do a PL snack on this topic specifically, like partner attribution and like CRMs here, because it's like we've seen it enough. And I think that there's like phases, right? There's like your MVP version for like you're really early on and you just need to get something basic versus, you know, when you get really sophisticated and you have a lot of complex reporting needs. So anyways,
Yeah.
very curious we could talk about it more because it's helpful juice for that topic, but I know
Yeah.
that's its own conversation.
Well, we'll add an attribution conversation to the roadmap for our conversations. Like we'll talk about tech vendors and partner tech, and then we'll have an attribution one for after your PL snack comes out, and can let you come in and kind of maybe do some demo walkthrough. I've talked about that extensively, and again, that kind of stuff always comes down to the org. Tom,
Yep.
You've got to drop, so follow up with me. Let's have some more conversations to make sure you get your questions answered, because I think there's definitely more we can talk about there.
You're my favorite partnership genius, Aaron. So I'll definitely be reaching out.
Well, I do all this free work because I like people.
Nice to meet you, Dylan. Good
All
to
right.
see you, Elizabeth.
You too.
Have a good day, Tom. Okay, Elizabeth, I'm very sorry to hear that they've gutted your partnership reference object. It's going to be fun to call back for you.
It's luckily somebody spoke up because I was kind of zoned in on slide deck creation. And then I heard one of my colleagues go, whoa, where are we? How come there's no option to select us anymore? And he's like, oh crap. He's like, yeah, meet with me after the call. We'll put that back in. So it's gonna get fixed.
I
So
think it's always fascinating how like these really, from like a tech, these decisions are very, very small, like the effort. But sometimes just these little things can cause such an uproar or like cause so many problems and, waste people's, could waste hours on a people's day when in reality, like, I don't know if it was already put back, but it takes about, I don't know, anywhere between 30 and 90 seconds to probably revert, like to get that back for you.
Yeah,
So it's always,
yeah, there's no worry that they'll put it in there.
it's just the
it's a matter of where
surprise.
does it fit?
It's
And
just
this comes back to, go ahead.
just the only reason why I mentioned it is because it's just evolving. There has not been a known cure or system for attribution. So it's continuously evolving.
This also speaks to, it sounds like, at least Elizabeth, you don't have a dedicated partner ops role.
We are hiring for that, actually.
All
And
right. Exciting times.
I
Now,
believe there is a person in her final stages of interviews.
okay. This,
She'll
what
come in.
level are you looking at? Entry level, some experience?
Oh, experience.
Okay.
But
Okay.
apparently she's going to take all the ops, but she's also going to take all the content creation that I've been zoning out on. She's going to take all of that on. She's got a lot of work to do.
Yeah. Okay. So it's a blended role, which is also common for ops, right? How do you support a dedicated ops person? And this is where, like, Dylan, I love that you're here and you're coming to these calls and getting awareness of what the challenges are. It's going to be really significant for your company at the end of the day, because you'll be able to speak to a component of RevOps that most RevOps people cannot speak to, because partnerships, as you've already said, is secondary, right? We are at a point with partner ops, I think, from a career development, industry development perspective, where marketing ops was a few years ago. People are like, oh, what does it do? And where does it fit? And where does it sit? And it's very frustrating as a practitioner with a few years experience, because you go, cool, like, for me, I'm looking for, what does an advanced level role look like here? Well, there's not a lot of them, because you're trying to figure out what does it mean to have a senior person in this seat. And a lot of people who are coming in are junior, getting moved over from a different part of the org or being trusted with this stuff from the ground up. And they're going to build based on fundamental concepts that are coming from direct rhythms, CS rhythms, right? Like, so it's just, that's why I asked, hopefully you're getting someone experienced, because you need someone who can bring that insight from the very beginning by the time you hire partner ops. And then you also can't afford the cost of a senior person as a startup. So what do you do, and how do you balance that experience? So I'm glad you're here to have that conversation, Dylan.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, go ahead.
it's, I was just gonna say, I think some of the more interesting engagements that we've had is when we're working directly like with people in partnerships. Like, part of this, because the sales and the CS stuff kind of gets repetitive, if I'm being we kind of hear the same things. But like, I think when you're working with partnerships, it's like I have to put on that partner ops hat, right? It's like, that's the role I'm playing for them in this capacity, and trying to supplement the fact that they don't have that person, whereas like the other orgs do. And then sometimes you learn, like, to be blunt, I mean, it depends, especially when we're talking about the broader tech stack, but some of the asks aren't that difficult to solve too. I think that's the thing that's like, I guess can be simultaneously like encouraging, but maybe frustrating for people, is like, probably, I think what these teams are asking for, it's not that much sometimes. Now I know that partner attribution is a whole topic, but like, that's not a single thing. That's a whole entire concept, right?
But even partner architecture, right? We talk about single account versus dual account. How are you going to architect your accounts? That problem pops up when you start to do PRM work, or you start to do technology integration work, and you start to look at your architecture, and you start to ask questions of, great, what's a partner account? What's a customer account? I see that a customer is a partner. If a partner brings a customer in, who owns that account? Does that even need to go into our system as a full-fledged account, or do we have access to those contacts, those data, GDPR rules? Like, that's where partner ops is more than RevOps. Partner ops is RevOps, marketing ops, CS ops, legal ops, contracting ops, product development ops. Like, that's where partner ops sits. That's what makes it interesting to me, is that anybody with experience in partner ops, if you're working cross-functionally in an ecosystem landscape, you're eventually working with all of these teams. I've talked to people in the past couple of weeks. One guy is more focused on strategy. He doesn't do a lot of system work. He's more focused on program development, strategy, operational execution of those things, and building process and rhythms, but he doesn't do much with CRM configuration, PRM ownership. Like, that lives outside him, and he's a one-man team. Somebody else I talked to is more focused on finance. So they're handling partner operations from, we're taking on invoicing, we're handling quote delivery, quote approvals, payments, commissions, all of that. When again, that's a sliver of what partner ops could be, because it is a broad function. So when you say, hey, we have rev ops and we're doing partner ops, you're doing partner rev ops. That's where I think there's going to be more segmentation of partner marketing ops, rev ops, partner CS ops, right? I think that moniker could go across all these teams. And when you get a experienced partner ops person to come in, what do you need them to do, right? There's a lot of delivery elements, or do you need them to be that strategic consultant to sit across the org and say, great, let me help RevOps design the right model with what I know about partnerships and partner rhythms and programs. Let me help CS understand support models and ticket exposure and service delivery management and CST or CStats, whatever you want to call it. Like that's where I think going. It's going to be an evolution, which is why I'm glad you're here, because you're starting to ask those questions. You'll get a lot of insight from here. You will hear common issues. It will get boring. It's going to be just like CS and sales ops, like cool. Attribution, account management, deal reg, lead bound, outbound, like all of that stuff. The company has the same problems at the end of the day. And back to what Tom was saying before, it's crazy that the tech doesn't work better together, because everybody wants, I think we're all still trying to compete. Let's say I'm not in partner tech right now. They're all still trying to compete to be end all be all solution. And I don't think that's going to be what works. At the end of the day, let me share this real quick. I just want to get some I'm getting as much feedback I can on this idea that I shared this morning, simply because this is my current obsession. Someone asked me about partner tech dream state a few weeks ago, and I've been thinking about that a lot. So what I see typically is this, or something like this. And I admit this morning, this is a really clean version. Hopefully you guys can see that okay. Pull it up a little bit more here. There we go. Like this is what a really clean version of it might be. This doesn't actually represent all the complexity. Okay, well, the CRM hosts all of our accounts, dual account model, single account model. We're using leads, we're using opportunities. Like all those questions don't exist within this framework. But typically, your partnership team sits in the CRM, and you're integrating account mapping tools, marketing collaboration tools, joint marketing, MDF request, asset management, co-branding, all that. You have incentive management, which can be its own separate thing, separate from a PRM or MDF. You have partner relationship management, claiming to do deal reg, lead management. You could put renewals through there, op management, right? That part PRM is where a lot of the sales efforts, and that comes from channel resellers. LMS content, partner listings is a whole nother subset, right? Of where your marketplace, your in-app directory, all that comes from. But like what we're doing is plug that back into the CRM constantly. Okay, we got to integrate with Salesforce. Salesforce, great. So we have data coming into the CRM, adds a lot of complexity to the CRM, a lot of integrations, a lot of managed packages you have to keep up with, a lot of updates there, potentially a whole lot of features that no one ever uses. Oh, we have a visual force button and a process here and a process there, but maybe you're not buying that. Maybe you bought this because you need a PRM, you need a partner portal. Well, they're going to dump a lot of features into your CRM for how you manage that stuff that you may not ever even see in the sales process, but it comes with the managed package and you've got to put it in and block it out somewhere. And then if you're a really sophisticated org, all that might be going back into data lakes, pushed over to CS tools, pushed into sales tools, which could be the CRM or Clary, and maybe you need an analytics layer. Like I said, this would be a really clean model. Interested to get thoughts, feedbacks. Dylan, you might have more technical thoughts here. Elizabeth, from your experience and what you guys have there, I'd love to know, does this feel like normal? Like this feel like what you see right now and kind of what you're dealing with?
Yeah, it seems like adequate flow.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I think there's probably some, and this is more semantics, right? I think there's some argument that, you know, like things like the CS tools aren't necessarily layered on top of the CRM, but could just be part of the CRM. Right. Like something that we do is like we see third-party tools, and then we're like, oh, did you actually know you could have this natively with a little bit of customization, you know, kind of saving you, to your point, right? You envision this and like there's tools in all of these spaces, right? So this is where I think people can get really overwhelmed by their tech stack, is, you know, and especially in our current economic climate, right? There's all these pushes from finance, right? Of like review our software spend and like, what are we actually using? What is duplicative of another? You are correct. Like, you know, it's like the old, you know, trying to be a jack of all trades, right? And then you end up being a master of none. Like, I think those tools that try to do everything in one, that usually doesn't work out.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like we probably also don't need a hyper specific tool for every single individual use case. So I think there's kind of like the balance is somewhere in the middle. The call out I was thinking there is like something like support, right? Which like, you know, it can be done within like Service Cloud. But then other businesses, they layer on additional tools.
Yeah, because Service Cloud comes with its own licensing components. It can get expensive as well. You need
Right.
maybe different dedicated management ownership, and your admin team doesn't have it. You don't want to hire consultants. You're right. It's not a perfect state. Like this is just
But there's
focused.
no way to properly diagram that. Like
exactly,
you know,
and
you
that's
need
part
like
of
more
the
dimensions.
conversation. That part of the conversation is, for me, this is a partnership view, and this is why all this stuff down here at the bottom. This is stuff that doesn't really have good answers in the industry right now, in my opinion. Right? Partner user management. Elizabeth, how easy is it for you to add partners to your system and keep up with users and access to the PRM, the marketing tools? Is that happening through Salesforce? Is it happening on a system by system basis?
It's happening through our M partner.
Okay, so you're using the PRM to keep up with that piece. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's actually. Oh, sorry.
The direct.
I was going to ask, is it SSO model? And you may not know. That may be too much to ask because you don't own the technical piece. I know.
It's really rude of you.
I know. I'm sorry.
SSO is a single sign-on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
See?
And that's one of those pieces the PRM will get you on, and then you start to use it. And then regardless of how you feel about the PRM down the road, if you want to leave, you now have to get rid of all the deal managed stuff and this SSO component, and you need to find a replacement for that. And if they don't authenticate properly to other systems, you have other issues and challenges. And can they embed? Blah blah blah. Yada yada yada. Okay.
I have a really great example. I think that it kind of helps maybe your point here. It's a little less of a common use case, but it's in healthcare. So one of our customers is healthcare, and you know, in that space, you work a lot with healthcare consultants. That's your partner, right? Yep. There was a really interesting problem, and then this kind of broke our Salesforce brains, our RevOps brains a little bit, where they were working through the consultants on deals, but we didn't know who the end customer was because the consultants protect that information initially on. Yeah. So we had this whole concept of partner sourced opportunities, but we didn't know who the account was. So it like, again, I realize it's also kind of a specific use case, but you know, again, this is also not uncommon in healthcare. I mean, this is going to be a thing. And I think that space is going to continue to grow quite significantly. And it was just, you could argue probably ended up being one of the weirdest things we had to build. And like probably would have done it differently in hindsight. But it just goes to show this, right? Like, I don't know if it was like a lack of clarity in the process. It was a lack of potential tools, but it made working through a CRM in a traditional way almost impossible because it was like, you're just creating all this dummy data.
Yeah, and that's it. You talked about like evolution earlier too, Dylan. You talked about, you know, well, we have attribution. What you can do attribution as you get started that are kind of quick and dirty and get you moving. There's really bad ways you can do it. There's good ways you can do it. If you get too far along without thinking about it, you get locked into the architecture and limited by your design, right? And then you've got a much larger project to unspin. Like, I think this is the same. I think partnerships likely starts in the CRM, but I feel like, and this may be true for more organizations, but this was the other diagram I shared this morning, is partnerships is a second class use the system, right? Oh, partner managers in here. Do you have a partner? And I talk about basic stuff in Salesforce. If you go look at my content for the past several months, basic stuff, create a partnership app. That way they just have, even if it's the identical to the sales app, they feel like they have a place to land, and it's a place you can begin to customize your homepage and objects and all that nonsense, right? You can do a lot of this within Salesforce, but when you're relying on the direct synchronization to Salesforce, experience has routinely been, you are adding a lot of complex workflow between two different types of business, sales rhythms and your partner sales rhythms, which may overlap and may share data. So what I have to stress with this is, I'm not saying you don't need that data in the CRM. I'm saying that maybe you need your partnership people in the CRM because they need different rhythms, different tools, different workflows. And if you can set your direct team and your partnership team up in different models where they have full ownership of their own stuff without always having to think about, oh, well, If we change this workflow, we have to exclude partner accounts and like that's where it gets really, really technical, and the debt builds in Salesforce over time. There are tools that can do this here, where you could maybe potentially bring in synchronization data from outside systems, push them to your partnership team where they can see it cleanly, still create a holistic experience for your partners, maybe even in the same platform, to where all the things you need to work on as a partnership manager are visible in one spot. You're not competing for resources or space with the direct business. And then you can still send that partner data back to anything you want through the CRM or otherwise through the sync layer as a part of that. This has been, and we're at time, so I hate to continue to waste your time on my dreams and visions, but
not at all. This is great visuals. This is exactly what we're doing here at Human, is because everybody was kind of on their own wavelength. So now we're coming back, we're creating flows such as this, we're doing all that busy work. So we have our partner packs, if you will, that describe step by step the whys, the what's in it for them, what's in it for us, all of those things. But it all starts too with the flow, and getting the Salesforce to understand what that flow is important.
Yeah. Love it. This is what I want to build. This is part of why I put that out in the world. I thought, you know what, I'm what I'd like to try to do out in the world, and see if anybody's willing to let me do it at some point. Atlassian is going to be a slow horse to move this direction. They're working toward a lot of interesting things. But if anybody can build it and validate it and be like, no, Aaron, that sucked. We tried it. That was awful. Never do that again. I could put this, like, I could just put this idea to rest and move back on and be like, no, let's just cram everyone into a CRM and continue to ask the CRM to be the workhorse of the organization, even though it's under-resourced and people don't know how partnerships works. But I have high hopes, high visions, high desires to see more of this happen, especially as we move toward, as Tom mentioned, an AI-dominated future, right? Where content and connection and learning becomes driven by a lot more of that automation and less by, did we put data in the right space, add a person to the right place, enable the right blah, 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 right? We'll see improvements on that space. That's it. I'm done. Thanks for chatting. Thanks for coming. Elizabeth, good to see you. Dylan, good to see you. Any last questions, comments, snide remarks, jokes?
The only thing I guess I was just kind of thinking about there, and I don't know if this is helpful or actually makes it harder. Sometimes when I talk to people about like CRM, the point I like to make is like, in an effort to try to simplify the way we think about it, to like both not put too much on it, so we don't have too many expectations of what it can do, is like, at the end of the day, it's still just a database, right? Like that's really all it is. The database
is anywhere.
Yeah. So there's a lot of databases out there. There's a lot of things that you can do with them. There's a visual component, obviously, like the UX is important, but like at the root, when we're talking about all that thing, you weren't as much talking about the UX. We're talking about like, what are we doing with the data? How is the data moving around? And yeah, it's just databases talking to each other. So there's a lot of different ways that they can speak to each other.
There is an experience layer for me in this, right? I tell people constantly, I don't care that much about operations. I do operations because I care about experience. I'm a product person at heart, and I lean into operations because I also have ADHD, so I lack the executive function to ignore bad process. A lot of people that don't have ADHD can just ignore it, move on, because they can segment properly, and I can't. So literally just can't. So it's driven me into an operational mindset. And then I get to hear, and I want this because if I have this, I can create an amazing experience for my partner managers, for my customer success team, for my marketing team. I can have a lot more granular control over what I share and when and who gets it where, and protect what I need to protect by share. But that part management piece of that element there, that is some kind of experience layer wrapped up, right? I want to bring all that into an experience layer for partnership management that maybe would work for partnerships as well, where partners can show up and engage through there. And then we're just plugging in technology on the back end to build workflow process and features, right? We want their features, but we don't necessarily need their UI. I don't know. I think the world is open. I think a lot's happening in tech. I think we'll continue to have conversations. At the end of the day, there's no right answer. There's the answer that works for your company. And that's always going to have to be flexible to what already exists and to where the company's going. Coming, man, I enjoy these conversations. Halfway through the week, it's also Wednesday noon, so it's literally the middle of the week. It's going to get me through the end of it. Bye, Elizabeth. Bye, Dylan. Y'all have a great day.
Take care.